Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Duncan Schieb. I'm the Head of Development at A Friend's Place. And today's a pretty exciting day. This is our first vodcast. We're going to develop a whole series of these vodcasts for the centre and a bit of a get-to-know-you piece today. And today, I'm very fortunate to have Scott Andrews, who's our Clinical Director. Scott has been a Clinical Director for 12 months, just about. Which is fantastic. And he stepped in his position with a unique blend of experience across social work. This includes funeral care, crisis support and bereavement counselling. Scott's got qualifications in social work and counselling. He began his awareness of grief work as a child, listening to his mother find solace in the McKissick's pioneering ABC radio program and their book, Coping with Grief. His career has taken him from dispute resolution at Optus to work in the funeral industry, 5 years at the Homicide Victim Support Unit, and eventually to A Friend's Place. Today, Scott counsels adults and children. He trains professionals and provides clinical guidance to those working with bereaved and dying populations. His approach is grounded in compassion, lived understanding, and a commitment to honouring the complexity of loss. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Duncan.
I guess to get the first question out of the way, your mum had found comfort listening to the McKissicks on the radio when you were young. What was it like to hear her talk about that program, and how did it plant seeds for your own path?
That's an interesting question. I was pretty young at the time when Mel was on ABC National, and I think it was on the weekend where he would be a guest on a radio program for an hour or so. He would talk about grief and loss and take some questions from callers. I don't remember a lot of the content, but I do remember how Mum responded to what Mel was saying, and I could see her draw a lot of comfort from what he was saying. I could see her putting two and two together in terms of our families lost. We lost had a number of our family members die in the Ash Wednesday bushfires. That a traumatic bereavement, and that affected us greatly. And so it was quite a timely radio program to listen to. And so I don't remember the content, but I do remember the effect. And Mel McKissick has a very soothing and calm voice, and talks at a lovely, calm, considered rate. And so when Mum was uptight and talking fast, she could listen to Mel, and that seemed to calm her down and give her a lot of wonderful, effective pointers on how to handle her grief and how to cope with Dad's grief as well.
Did you have an idea that you'd end up here, sort of at that point in terms of the path career? How old were you when that first?
Well, look, if we go back historically, I did a week of work experience in year 10 at a funeral home.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was probably the next introduction to that part of life. Mm-hmm. And I see death as part of life. It's not something separate, not something that can be or should be put in the corner as part of life. So I think seeds were sown along the way. Certainly that radio program that that Mum listened to, the funeral director's experience in year 10, probably sowed seeds that took a long time to germinate. And it was when I was studying counselling that I was learning all different types of therapy and all different types of counselling. But it was the grief and loss, the trauma units, and the existential therapy, what's life all about, units that really intrigued me and really drew me to this field, and has kept me in this field for 15 plus years.
It's amazing. I guess taking a step back, because you were in corporate for a while at Optus.
Yeah.
And so why was the shift from Optus to obviously funeral work? How did you get to that jump?
Well, being at Optus in dispute resolution or complaints for almost 10 years.
Was there a few?
There were a few, and these weren't just complaints. These were escalated complaints. Right. So they'd come through customer service, they'd come through their supervisors, their centre managers, and so that by the time it got to our desk, it was very, very messy and complicated and needed a lot of time spent on trying to get some sort of resolution. It was in that space where two people, for example, had the same issue. So if we sent out a bill that was wrong to 125,000 people, we would get lots of complaints and lots of different reactions as well. So even if it was like a $2 surcharge that we shouldn't have put on that bill, but we did, I would get one person on Monday saying, look, it's $2, mate. Just fix it. We're right. It's all under control. Yep, no worries. Okay. I'd get another person on Tuesday saying, how dare you? You put that $2 charge on my bill. I'm going straight to John Laws or Alan Jones. You've not heard the last of this. You don't have any right to put. And it was the two reactions to the one thing that really intrigued me to human nature.
Yeah.
Why did person on Monday have an okay reaction? And why did person on Tuesday have that reaction? And it was really that simple phenomena that got me intrigued in human nature. So I looked into some counselling courses, found one that fitted my circumstances, and that's where the journey just took off. Understanding why people react the way they do, why they are a product of their experience, the choices we make, and it's just been an intriguing field ever since. So going to the funeral home, I worked there for about 2 years while I finished off some study. So I finished off the last little bit of that counselling degree. And the 2 years in that funeral home, I worked both behind the scenes, so mortuary work, washing cars, as well as front of house work. So picking up families to take them to the funeral of their loved one, staying at the wake with them and then bringing them home again. And so I had a full, I guess, picture of not just the person who had died, but their family, how they reacted, and could see that raw, acute grief that they had almost from day one. And part of my role was to help take care of their loved one's body, to dress them if needed, to make them presentable if possible for a viewing. And it was that real hands-on work that gave me, I guess, lived experience of taking care of people who are experiencing grief.
And is that how it is all about the taking care of, like working in that environment must be challenging for a whole host of reasons.
Yeah.
But that's it. I guess, I mean, I had no experience in a funeral home. I've obviously attended my share of funerals and had various experiences, I guess, from the door. So how did that sort of continue to shape you in terms of your thoughts around understanding grief to today?
Yeah, well, I was very blessed to work in a funeral home that were respectful front of house and continued that respect back of house when family members weren't watching as well. So how we took care of people who had died was with dignity and respect behind the scenes, just as much in front of family members who were watching our every move at the funeral as well. So it taught me to, I guess, have confidence in the process as well. And when we're companioning people through terrible events or the death of their loved one, I find that from my experience from that funeral home, what's left with me is that dignity and respect, not just when people are watching, but when people aren't watching as well, because there are many, many funeral homes that don't carry that respect from front to back. I was blessed to be with one that did, and that really has left, I guess, a legacy for me of carrying that dignity and respect through to what we do here.
That's fantastic. The homicide victim support group, you introduced me to the organisation, and I've walked around, their amazing facility that they have. It's intense. Like it's intense walking through there as an individual with the stories, and obviously very traumatic for I guess everyone concerned. What can you share? What the experience taught you about resilience and shock, and what families need when loss is violent and sudden.
That's a big question because traumatic bereavement, whether it's through homicide or suicide or car accident, has that high element of trauma with it as well. So at the Homicide Victim Support Group, we were supporting families, and they do support families where their loved ones were either witness to their death, violent death, or they found the person after they had died. So just a lot of traumatic elements to that. And we at a friend's place here see grief as a normal and adaptive process that we go through in order to accommodate loss in our life. So it's a natural process. And if there are high elements of trauma in that process, it can stop a natural grieving process that can happen. So resilience, I could fill a book with the stories of resilience of people that I've seen. And that's not just grown-ups, but that's children as well. So at a friend's place here, we see children from the ages of 3 right up to 18. And I've seen resilient 3, 4, 6, 8, 12-year-olds. I guess my view of resilience might be different to a textbook definition. So if you read a textbook, resilience is, the ability to bounce back or the capacity to get over and move on. Resilience in my book, I think, is not only the learning to accommodate loss, but it's, I guess, the courage to show up every day. And my clients, our clients, and even myself, we have big capacity days and we have low capacity days. And that's going to be the case for the rest of everyone's life. Some days you'll just be able to smash it out of the park. You'll be able to, have moments of feeling good, feeling productive. And there are other days where the capacity will be shrunk and you won't be able to get out of bed. And I see resilience as both of those things. It's not just the person who's experienced incredible loss and does a podcast or writes a book or takes the stage or does a TED talk. It's also the people who quietly show up with courage because they've got no other choice. And I think that for me is resilience just as much as the ones that we can see and who seem to be doing great. Resilience, sure. And I think it's also the quiet courage of I'll try again tomorrow.
What, I guess, look at on the resilience aspect, you listen to pain every day. And over the years, I don't know how many clients that you have would be hundreds of thousands, no doubt. What's your anchor or practice that keeps you grounded for yourself?
Another big question, Duncan.
It's hard hitting here.
Yeah. I guess for me, it starts with a framework.
Yeah.
And when I was at Optus for 10 years, in complaints, so day after day, call after call, letter after letter, going to tribunals, going to mediation, all I ever heard about Optus for 10 years is what we did wrong. So the phone's not working, the bill's wrong, the customer service person was rude. So just day after day of stuff that went wrong, stuff that didn't work. And I found at the end of 10 years of that, when I left Optus, I had absolutely no faith in Optus as a company because I'd heard all the stuff that went wrong.
Yeah, for 10 years,
I'd heard anger, I'd heard pain, and so why I say that is because if I'm in this field hearing nothing but pain and brokenness and trauma and grief, at the end of my days, I will have lost faith in life. I'll lost faith in people because all I've heard is brokenness and pain. So I think it's a great question you've asked because we do need anchors in life to be able to do the work that we do every day. And I would have to be made from marble to not be affected by the stories I hear. And I have to be affected by the stories I hear. Otherwise, I'm in the wrong job. But it's how I manage that, how it affects me, which determines whether I can stay in this field or not. So what I do, my anchors in life, we often talk about trigger points. So, what triggers you, what activates you, what activates your grief. And I think that's important to know. I also think it's important to know what our glimmer points are. So those points in life which bring us awe or bring us in front of beauty. And recent research shows that the capacity to feel awe cultivates resilience. And so if I can just put myself in something, whether it's in front of a flower, a sunset, a loving friend, poetry, art, something beauty that inspires awe, that's one of my glimmer points, and that's one of my anchors in life. I also know that I am not the Messiah, and I can't help everyone. I can do what I do, but not everyone who comes to me or comes to a friend's place will leave getting what they think they need. And so I don't have I can help everyone everywhere. We will do what we do. I will do what we do. And that's all I can do. But all I can do is the best I can do, and that's enough.
Yeah.
And what we have in our counselling space here is called supervision, which means every month I partake in 2 group supervision sessions, as well as individual supervision. And that's a place for me to talk about the stuff, the stories that have affected me. And I have found over the last 15, 17 years that there are some stories that just hit harder, that go deeper than other stories, for whatever reason that is. And so when I carry that to supervision. And so there's someone that takes care of me. There are groups of people that take care of me that I can rely on when I just need to get something out. And the way that we counsel bereaved people, the model that Mel and Di McKissick have come up with enables us to not carry a lot of stuff around. And so in our courses that we teach, we train professionals and lay people to use that counselling method so we don't carry stuff home. So there's a few of the things that I use to remain anchored in life and to be able to withstand the pain and the brokenness and the trauma and grief that all of us hear every day.
Thanks for sharing that. As a clinical director, your job, and congratulations, 12 years, a few months behind you, I guess, on that. But it's been fantastic for me to learn from you in terms of what you do. I've been lucky to be involved with some of the training, which obviously hit hard for me when I did it. So what are in shaping a friend's place for the future? What do you think, or what do you most want to strengthen or change even?
That's a good question, because when Mel and Di McKissick started A Friend's Place 31 plus years ago, the landscape was very different. And so Mel and Di McKissick were the only ones who were training counsellors in this thing we called grief and bereavement. Mel and Di McKissick are internationally renowned for their experience, for the model of counselling that they've crafted over many years. So part of my role is to look at the landscape that we have now, where there's lots of people talking about grief and loss. There's lots of people doing training online, via correspondence, in person. And so back then, when this place started, that wasn't the case. And so we've really had to be mindful of keeping the message, but utilising different mediums to communicate that message. So I have a heart to teach people, both lay people and professionals, the model of counselling and the core principles that Mel and Di have come up with over many decades of experience. And in the counselling and psychology world these days, it's all about evidence-based practice. So it has to be researched. It has to be, watertight. There needs to be peer-reviewed articles written. There needs to be random controlled trials. So evidence-based practice is very, very esteemed in the counselling field. what I've observed here at a friend's place is that what we use and what we do isn't evidence-based practice. It's more practice-based evidence. And so it's over years and years and years of talking with hundreds and thousands of bereaved people that Mel and I have created this counselling model and crafted these core, rudimentary, fundamental principles of bereavement counselling that have withstood the test of time. And now, as research is starting to gain pace with what Mel and I have been doing, a lot of what they've been doing, most of what they've been doing, all of what they've been doing is being validated and affirmed by current research. And so my heart is to keep that core message that grief is a natural, adaptive human process. It's not a disease to be cured. It's not a sickness to be healed. It's not a problem to be solved. It's not something to be gotten over. We use language like grief is something you learn to live with. We learn to integrate grief. We learn to accommodate grief. We learn to live with. So we don't use get over and move on, because grief, the way we conceptualize it, is really about love and attachment. And so if you love someone forever, regardless of whether they're here physically, you will grieve for them forever. That's the price of love. And that grief will change in shape and intensity over time. Absolutely. But it's not something to be eradicated or exercised from life. And I think certainly from a medical model or from a lot of the training I've seen, it's a lot of how do we get over this and how do we move on? And in our way, we don't move on, we move with. And we learn to grow with our grief, around our grief. It's not something that needs to be, put in a corner, never talked about and gotten over. So I would love to keep those core messages whilst being relevant to the need of the time. And I think the need is great for professional training in bereavement counselling. And I'd love to keep that message while looking at different mediums and how to get that message out.
It's a great answer. Very thoughtful. What's one piece of wisdom you'd probably share with someone who has just experienced the death of a loved one, particularly if that death is sudden or traumatic?
Another big question. So, what I use in my personal life is adapted from what I use in my professional life. So, Mel McKissick says, the first rule, there are only two rules in bereavement counselling. The first rule is to slow down.
Yeah.
And the second rule is to slow down. And so my advice to clients and friends and people who call me for advice about what to do, slow down. Slow down. Okay. And first we survive.
Is it as simple as that, though?
Well, that's the entry.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Slow down. Yeah.
And knowing that we survive first,
Yeah.
and then we grieve. And so if my house is burning down and I'm watching it, I'm not grieving, I'm in shock.
Yeah.
I may have just gotten out. So I'm still numb. I'm still got the adrenaline flowing and the cortisol flowing. So, we're not talking about grief yet. We're talking about surviving, getting out of the fire first. And then we're talking about taking care of our organism, our body. So lots of water, as much nutritious food as you can, because when we're traumatized or in shock, our appetite goes out the window. So focusing on taking care of our organism first, that's survival. And the cliche is everyone grieves in their own way. You may have heard that.
I have.
Books.
Yep.
You may have heard that many times.
Yep.
Everyone grieves in their own way. What's that mean, though? Everyone wears different size shoes. What's that mean? So what my role is, not only as a bereavement counsellor, but as a friend, is to find out who that person was before their life came apart. So the more I can get to know that person and who they were before, gives me great insight into their grief journey now. So were they a talker? Were they extroverted before their loved one died? Were they withdrawn? Were they an introvert? Because we become amplified versions of who we are.
Yeah.
And so if someone was always withdrawn and didn't talk much, didn't talk about their feelings much, didn't cry much, chances are they're not going to suddenly turn into a talker and a crier and a communicator of how they feel. And a lot of people can be concerned because, Duncan was an extrovert and a sanguine person before, and he just won't shut up now. He's talking. Shouldn't he be crying more? Shouldn't he be?
Yeah.
And knowing that person, who they were before, gives us real good insight into their grief journey now, in terms of behaviours, in terms of patterns of survival as well. And we also know, thanks to Mel and Di McKissick, that regression is part of our grief journey and trauma journey as well. So regression is talking about emotional vulnerability. So adults regress to somewhere between the ages of 8 to 15 years of age in their vulnerability. And so me getting to know that person within that time of their life, and that's a big time of life. You've got puberty, you've got high school, maybe mum and dad are separating. So how did they survive back then? Did they head out with friends? Did they read? Did they head to the beach? Did they go for walks in the forest? Because whatever they did to survive back then, they'll be doing an adult version of that now.
Okay.
And so when we talk with clients and with friends about these principles, they can then try to extrapolate and glean how I'm going to survive this. What can I do to take care of my organism and to take care of, manage my grief as well? So there are a few of the things that we touch on in our training as well, but they're also things that we can use with our friends and with our family in terms of their emotional vulnerability and their patterns of behaviour and how they survive initially.
Well done, Scott. That's fantastic. No, I really appreciate your time and we look forward to learning more.
Pleasure. Anytime.
Well, that concludes our very first vodcast for our Friends Place. We're excited to tell more stories of our staff and families. We hope you get a lot out of it, and thanks for tuning in.